or are we left-brained? People are often told that they must be right-brained because they're more creative, or that they're left-brained because they're more analytical. You might ask yourself, where did this idea stem from? It actually came from the work done by neuropsychologist Roger W. Sperry. In the 1960s, Dr. Sperry made a breakthrough by figuring out that he could actually help people that had epilepsy. He discovered by cutting the connection in the corpus callosum, which is located in between the right and left hemisphere, that it could actually help prevent people from having seizures. However, people that had this procedure done actually had a decline in their ability to process language. This was seen by individuals having difficulty processing language that was perceived on the right side of the brain, but being able to perceive language that was perceived on the left side of the brain. This led people to believe that the left side of the brain was solely used for language. This was then exaggerated, where people began to believe that the left side of the hemisphere was only used for analytical processing and the right side of the hemisphere was used for creative processing. It was then when pop psychology adopted this ideal and started to use it to define people's personalities. Here we have collected a few common misconceptions.
Oh my god! I just completed the quiz on BuzzFeed and it said I'm left-brained. No wonder I did so well on my GRE.
Actually, let me stop you there. There are actually differences that you can see in the right and left hemispheres of the brain. However, there isn't really one hemisphere of the brain that makes it completely dominant. The brain actually isn't as different as people usually think it is. There's been research done that actually shows that subjects such as math are usually stronger when you're using both hemispheres of the brain. It's usually done more by connectedness between the brain, and that's usually done through the corpus callosum. What's the corpus callosum, you say? The corpus callosum is part of the mind that allows communication between the two hemispheres of the brain. It is responsible for transmitting messages between both the right and left hemispheres.
Yeah, so Grandma had a stroke on the left side of her body. Yeah, I think that means that the right side of her brain is completely damaged. It's just such a shame. She was such a beautiful artist.
Actually, having a stroke doesn't always damage the entire function of the one side of the hemisphere. It actually just affects one area of the hemisphere, and you'll usually see damage on that one side.
So would a stroke on either side of the brain cause the same type of damage?
Not usually. Usually, if it happens on the left side, the symptoms will look different than it happens on the right side. There's usually a noticeable difference in strategizing with people that have had strokes. So usually if somebody has had a stroke on the right hemisphere of the brain, they'll usually take a longer time to kind of strategize or use critical thinking skills than somebody that has had damage on the left side of the hemisphere from a stroke.
So will my grandma ever get better?
It's hard to say, but the brain is amazing and it has an amazing way to try and heal itself.
It's so sad that animals' brains don't function the same way humans do. I mean, how am I supposed to know if my dog is right or left-footed?
Actually, brain dominance has been shown to be in several animals such as frogs and mice. Although the brain lateralization is once thought to be only unique to humans, there's actually a lot of evidence to suggest that chimpanzees use brain lateralization to use communication skills such as sign language.
So what is brain lateralization?
The human brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right. Lateralization of brain function means that there are certain mental processes that are mainly specialized to one side or the other. Most mental functions are distributed across the hemispheres, but there are specific functions that are specialized to one hemisphere. For example, both sides of the brain perform functions related to language, but for most people, grammar and vocabulary are processed in the left hemisphere, while understanding emotional content of language is processed in the right hemisphere.
Oh, interesting. So do animals have language too?
Well, the ability to produce verbal language is kind of specific to humans, such as understanding grammar and using inflection when we're speaking. But it is a huge step in understanding that language among species is not just specific to humans, and that brain lateralization can occur among more species than we thought. As we have learned, there are specific tasks that are unique to one side of our brain. However, it is not accurate to say that one side of our hemisphere defines our personality. We need both hemispheres to work together to process the world around us.